right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Bob Pompeani here with you on a Sunday evening. Victory Sunday for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they put out their best offensive output all season, 32 points, although a lot of that was defense making things happen, and the offense took advantage of some, not all those situations. But they came away with a much-needed win after losing 2 in a row, and so they're now 4-2 coming home for back-to-back games against the New York teams, which then takes them into a bye week. So a good situation for the Steelers, at least in the standings, where they're tied with Baltimore at 4-2. And then it's Cincinnati trying to win a game tonight. If not, they'll drop to 1-5. Cleveland Browns already at 1-5. They beat them there by losing today, as they did in Philadelphia. So we have a lot to get into. I'd like to hear from you about the Steelers and what you thought of their play today. And a question that continues to loom, and that is the quarterback. I know Justin Fields has played well enough to earn that start for 6 weeks in a row. He's done everything Mike Tomlin has asked him to do, mostly not turn the ball over. Also, come up and use your legs when necessary. And today he had 60 yards rushing, 59 to be exact, and both touchdowns that he scored were of the running variety, and that's kind of how he plays it. But the passing game still has a lot to unfold and a lot to unpack and a lot to get better on. When you look at their numbers across the boards, George Pickens only had 3 catches again today. He was targeted 8 times with 3 catches. He led all receivers. After that, it was Calvin Austin. There was nothing on the sheet from anyone else in the wide receiver category. Darnell Washington, 1 catch. Pat Freiermuth, 2 catches. They're not getting a lot of production from their wide receiver or their pass game. And that's why a lot of this lingering debate about who should start here next week. Should it be Russell Wilson? Should it be Justin Fields? So while I realize that's getting closer to becoming a real issue, I think moving forward, they just need to continue to do what they're doing, and that's win football games. Mike Tomlin says it a lot. Football is our game, winning is our business. And I think he really wants that and needs that out of his players, however you get it. And today, again, I thought the run game was strong. The defense got better. Now, that first drive, I was a little disappointed in it, only because we saw in the last 2 games, right off the bat, they gave up 2 consecutive touchdown drives to Indianapolis. Joe Flacco had a lot to do with that. And they fell behind. They could never recover. And then against Dallas last week, end of the game, 95-yard drive allowed, touchdown, a 70-yard drive allowed, a touchdown, the game-winning drive. That the defense was not coming up big. And then right off the bat today, it's another long drive, 10 plays, 70 yards, and they made it look easy. And this is with Aiden O'Connell as their quarterback. And yeah, they put up points today, but that's a little deceiving. If you saw that score and you didn't see how it came about, you might not come to the same conclusion, because it wasn't that easy in the first half, 12-7. And then all of a sudden, some big plays by the defense. I also thought there's some questionable calls that led to an offense that could have been stopped twice. You might remember Justin Fields threw an interception. Diablo made a beautiful play on that, but on the same play, the Raiders were called for roughing the passer. And to me, it was a real iffy call. If it had been the Steelers who had done that to Oakland, or to Vegas, you would have said the same thing. If it was T.J. Watt being victimized, sometimes those big guys just can't stop themselves. They're coming straight at a guy. What are you supposed to do? Anyway, Steelers took advantage of that, and they got points out of it. But that's one of them. They're also, I don't know if you saw that, right before, I forget what quarter it was, where they called ineligible man downfield. I still don't know who that is. Chris Hoke and I went through that, looked at the play over and over, and it did not seem like anyone was down, offensive line down the field ineligible. I do think, though, that they did not get that playoff in time. They got a touchdown on it, so maybe that was a call to get even. I don't know. All I know is the Steelers won a game 32-13. They needed that. They're 4-2. If you're a fantasy football fan, if you had Najee Harris, you like this from PFF Fantasy. 106 yards rushing, 84 of them after contact, 6 missed tackles forced, a touchdown, and a very good rating. But he was motivated today, and that kind of performance is something that can inspire the rest of the offense, and I think that's exactly what it did. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. We'll get right to the lines now. We'll begin with Bert in Ross Traver. Hey, Bert.
How about thanks? Yeah. I'm watching the game today, and it looks to me like Fields has really come along. I think he's ready to be their starter.
But the pass game, again, Bert, is something that I haven't seen enough of. I need to see more. This is a passing league after all. And I'd start him again next week. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that. What I am saying is at some point they're going to take on teams that are going to be able to score some points on that defense. And when that happens, you're going to be able to have to open things up in the pass game. And I saw a lot of overthrows today. I thought there were a couple of misreads. You can be nitpicky about it, I guess. I still think overall he's playing well enough to win games. And they did. They could have won last week. For example, if Landon Roberts with that missile shot that jarred the ball loose at the goal line, if the Steelers recover that and they win the game because of that, it's a whole different kind of conversation, not only about Landon Roberts and his place in history, but also they would have another win. So winning is important, and he's doing that. He's not making enough mistakes to take him out of the lineup, so I'm not saying I'd do that. What I am saying is sooner or later that pass game better get better, and whether it's schematics, whether it's just not trusting him down the field enough, whether it's not having enough talented people at the wide receiving position, which is probably one of them, that has to get worked out. 412-575-2600. Let's go to Justin in New York. Hello, Justin. How are you?
How are you doing today, Bob, or tonight, I should say?
I'm doing well. How are you, Justin?
Good. So, obviously, you just answered my question. I don't know who you would start, Justin Fields or Russell Wilson next week.
Well, yeah, I would do. I mean, I understand why people would look to, he came in here, that was the plan. He was the guy in the, quote, pole position, and he got hurt. And Justin Fields has taken advantage of that absence. Good for him, and they needed to find out and have an evaluation about Justin Fields at some point anyway. So this is good to have. But, again, at some point, things are going to change in that regard if they don't put up better passing numbers. Because unless you run the ball the way they did today, which was for 183 yards, 60 of which came from Fields, you're going to rely on the pass game at some point. Let's go to Greg in Washington. Hey, Greg.
What's up, Bob? Hey, I just want to say, first of all, Harris ran with, like, the hardest I've ever seen him run for some reason. But what I wanted to say is, now, when Fields threw that interception late in the second quarter, now, he got, they called the roughing the passer. Now, if they would have went in the locker room with down 7-6, do you think Tomlin would have put Russell in starting the third quarter?
I mean, I saw last year where Kenny Pickett got into a game that I didn't think was going to happen because of a similar situation with Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, that's a possibility, but the interception never counted because of the call on the field. But that was a good, Diablo played a very good game for the Raiders today, I thought. But it didn't happen that way, and I thought Fields handled the second half very, very well in terms of what they were trying to do. So, but that's an interesting thing. If it's 7-6 at halftime and an interception ends their drive right before halftime, maybe that does happen. Who knows? It happened last year, and I didn't think it would, given that halftime deficit. I think it was to the Jets, and then it was Pickett who came out and started after, or whatever year that was. Let's go to Kirk in Harmer Township. Hey, Kirk, how are you?
Long time no talk to you, Bob. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for calling.
All right, buddy. Look, again, count your blessings. The Steelers, the Maroonies. I don't know if the 40 Clover's in action here, but, blessed are those who are in the AFC North, because these other three teams are playing much more sadly than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, not the Ravens.
They'll soon be. Once their quarterback's hurt, which he will be, they'll lose 3 or 4 in a row again. But look, this guy, he's got to tone down his passing, Bob. It's not the receivers. Granted, they drop 1 or 2 a game, but 9 passes today were thrown 2 feet or higher over the heads of the receivers. And
well, that's what I'm talking about. I think Justin Fields sometimes going to be highly erratic and miss players who are open in costly situations. And that's what I refer to when I say he had 145 passing yards. On a day where they ran the ball as well as they did, you would think that number would be higher. Net passing 110 yards. Those numbers just have to get better. And I don't want to tell you that it's more important than winning. Winning is the number one thing, and they got it today, and he was a big part of it. He had 2 rushing scores. I think he made plays when he had to. But, again, at some point, you're going to see Russell Wilson, because I think they want to see Russell Wilson, especially when it comes to his experience in going through progressions. You can say whatever you want about what happened in Denver. I still don't know the real reason. My suspicion is that Sean Payton just, for whatever reason, didn't like Russell Wilson. But if you look at his season last year, he had combined more touchdowns than all 3 of the Steelers' starting quarterbacks. He also, in the red zone, was one of the best in the NFL with 20 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's good at figuring out. Now, you can also argue back at me that, well, that offensive line may not give him enough time. They have all sorts of injury problems to it, and today Zach Frazier joined that list with some sort of an ankle injury, so he may miss a little bit of time. Who knows? So that could be a concern as well. Fields will get you out of some of those situations where he can use his feet to turn negative into a positive. And Russell Wilson, I don't think at this stage of the game will do that. David in Washington is up next. Hey, David.
Hey, Bob. Hey, I know it's a Steeler night, but I wanted to point out today's the 64th anniversary of the Mazeroski home run.
Yeah, you had another home run. Same time, too.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
And I wanted to ask you, over the years, you actually have heard people argue that the Gibson home run was the most impactful, but I disagree with that, and I wanted to get your opinion on that. And just I think the fact that it was against the Yankees, I think that's why that's held that allure for all these years, because I read an account where Mickey Mantle said he cried on the plane ride home the whole way because he said that was the only time he felt that the better team didn't win. So I just wanted to get your opinion. Do you think that's still the most impactful home run in the history of baseball?
Yes, absolutely. And for all the reasons you just cited. You can tell me Kirk Gibson all you want. It comes from an L.A. market. Of course they're going to prop it up. In terms of David and Goliath and what that meant, and yeah, you know, he was right on the plane when he started to cry where he said the best team didn't win, because the best team did not win. I'll always believe that. The Yankees outscored them in bushel amount of numbers there, but it just so happens that the Pirates stayed in games, won games, you know, took advantage of situations, and also had a home run that still is the last and only time a walk-off to win a Game 7 of a World Series. So absolutely, that's the number one home run. I don't care what they think in L.A. about Kirk Gibson. Tremendous, but not anywhere near, to me, Bill Mazeroski, and I've always believed that. Sports call, I got to tell you, too, I'm going to put this cup where you can actually see it. Got to take care of Ireland Contracting. They are the title sponsor, after all. Pitt is moved up in the rankings. They're number 20 this week. Penn State moves up to number 3. It's very interesting. The Big Ten is going to be well represented. It's going to be tough. Ohio State, despite the loss to Oregon, which moved to number 2 behind Texas. So it's Texas 1, Oregon 2, Penn State 3. Ohio State is number 4, which is interesting. That was a crazy game. Anytime those two play, it seems like it's outstanding football at a college level for sure. And Oregon pulled out a win, 33-32, I think that final was yesterday. So Ohio State lost. And they've not done well against top 5 teams over the last 4 years. So I think 0-4 in those situations. Anyway, Penn State did what they had to do. They trailed at halftime, put together a pretty good second half, forced an overtime, and beat USC. Pitt held on, and that's what I would describe that as at the end of that game yesterday, and they beat Cal, so they're up to number 20. This playoff with 12 teams is going to be very interesting to see who's going to be in, who's not going to be in it. But potentially, and I hope this happens, it may be a long shot, but Pitt and Penn State playing in a playoff game, wouldn't that be nice to see? 412-575-2600. The Penguins on the road a lot here this month, but they lost the other night in Toronto 4-2. We've seen back-to-back games with Joel Blomqvist as their goaltender, and I'm encouraged by what I see from him. I am. I think Toronto's a better team than Detroit. They won that game because they got some goal production. Last night, only 2 goals, one of which was on a power play by Chris Letang. But then after that, the Penguins had 3 opportunities. They could not score on any of those. So they're 1-2 in the first 3 games. And as I've said before, I believe this team needs to accumulate as many points as it can at the beginning of the season, just so that they could ensure getting to the end of the season and not having to win a game on the final game of the regular season to get in. The last 2 years, it's been just by a few amount of points that they not qualify for the playoffs. Once you're in there, best of 7s, things can happen, especially with the kind of talent they have. Still, those guys in their 30s are playing good hockey, and if they get some contributions from younger players, it should be a decent mix. Goaltending's important. And I wonder how Mike Sullivan's going to play Tristan Jarry now, because he went through the end of last year where he did not play a game in 13 straight. He leaned on heavily Alex Nedeljkovic. And I wonder if he's going to keep sticking with Blomqvist or alternate or do something until Nedeljkovic comes back from his injury. So I think that's something to watch this week as the Penguins continue their early season hockey schedule. As for us, we have the number 1 Cochran Sports Showdown. It's coming up tonight after your late news. It's 10:45 roughly, and we'll have a lot to get into. We'll talk about some of these topics. I'll be anxious to hear what the guys say about the quarterback situation with Pittsburgh, and also what they need to do to take advantage of the next 2 games. You got the Jets, and I saw the early line. The Penguins or the Steelers are 2.5-point favorites over the New York Jets. They'll play here on Sunday night. Then the following week it's the Giants, and they're giving Cincinnati all they can handle tonight. So nothing's easy in the NFL. I'll leave you with one thought. How did the Vegas Raiders beat the Baltimore Ravens? You figure that out. Good night. We'll see you on the show now.